Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for joining us, and good morning, Ayuba.
Good morning, Stella.
It's a beautiful morning, not just because it's a Wednesday, but because it's the first day of February, the month where we go to the polls.
Yeah, right. It's the 1st of February indeed. Quite a lot we hope to see in this month. The election being the major one. The Nigerians will get to decide who leads them in the next 4 years. Of the journey of this journey of being in Nigeria and all that.
I mean, just to think that all we have been talking about, we just have 24 days to decide.
To decide.
Until now, some of you have not collected your PVCs. Ensure you do that. I think there are just 5 days left to collect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And till now, some people are still undecided who they are going to vote. I would advise that by now you should have made up your mind who you want to vote. You don't want a situation where, you get to decide at the polling units based on who gives out whatever to you. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So this time around, no vote buying. Don't trade your vote for anything. And just do the right thing and make sure that you vote the right person, because hey, the next 4 years is at stake here. So it's very crucial. Yes,
I was going to say that no matter what you collect, just know that that is 4 years you're buying, whatever it is that you're taking. Exactly. So if that's salt you're collecting, that whatever is what 4 years, you decide.
And not just 4 years, sometimes you really can't tell how it will come back to you, because I mean, this could be a healthcare center in your area that you are trading. It could be the roads in your area that you are trading. It just could be anything.
Your education or that of your children.
Exactly. So it's very crucial that, this time around, Nigerians get to vote, their conscience, and not, and don't be violent about it also. That's also another thing. Peacefully, just go cast your vote, do the right thing.
And also the politicians, they must understand that they have just 2 weeks or 3 weeks now to, state clearly what they are going to do. I mean, at this point, all the attacks and all that should stop, so that they should just tell us what it is that they're going to do, so that those who are undecided can decide.
I agree. All right, then let's take a look at the headlines this morning. We'll be here to always keep you up to date and give you a heads up to know what exactly is happening and how to make your, informed decisions. Now, the first headline here says, forfeited assets, Desiani renews bid to reclaim properties.
DPO gunned down in Benue.
Murja Kunya, controversial TikToker setting Arewa social media on fire.
Now let's take a look at the details. Former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desiani Alice Imadueke, has initiated a process at the Federal High Court in Abuja to have the forfeiture orders of the federal government on properties allegedly linked to her vacated, in a fresh motion filed before the Federal High Court in Abuja by her lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mike Uzehome. Alice Imadueke wants, among others, an order extending the time within which to seek leave to apply to the court for an order setting aside the public notice issued by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to conduct a public sale on her property. She said the motion is intended against the notice recently issued by the EFCC for disposal of forfeited assets, some of which included those belonging to her. In a supporting affidavit also, the former minister noted that the EFCC planned to conduct a public sale of all forfeited beginning from January 9, as contained in its public notice, following various court judgments and orders issued in favor of the commission as final forfeiture orders against property and personal effects linked to her. Seeking 5 reliefs, Alice Imadueke argued, among others, that she was not heard before the orders for forfeiture were issued, thereby denying her the right to fair hearing.
All right, now, gunmen have killed a divisional police officer in Gwere West local government area of Benue State. Witnesses said that the DPO was killed by the gunmen who laid a siege to Naka Makurdi dilapidated road at about 3:30 p.m. The chairman of the Gwer West local government area, Andrew Ayande, confirmed the incident to our correspondent on telephone, noting that the deceased was in charge of Naka Divisional Police Station, drove alone in a vehicle and was going to pick up his men posted along the road on routine duty before the gunmen opened fire on him. Ayande, however, said it was not yet clear whether other vehicles plying the route were attacked. The council chairman also said one Taim Bashir was killed in the early hours of Tuesday by armed invaders who attacked his community in Gwer West local government area.
A 24-year-old lady from Kano State, Murja Ibrahim Kunya, popularly known as Murja Kunya, has sparked heated controversy on social media after she was arrested by the police in Kano over indecent behavior and use of vulgar language on social media, particularly TikTok. Murja had garnered followers on TikTok for being exceptionally outspoken in the Hausa language, in a manner many of her Hausa-speaking northern Nigerian audience considered funny and entertaining. As a way of taking further her skills and making better use of her TikTok, following that at a point reached 1 million followers, she began comedy skits. She also later be seen appearing in short videos, music videos alongside another artist, Mr. 442. Other TikTokers included in the later were Mr. 442, Safarao Dan Maraya, Amude Booth, Kanwa Dan Serki, Adogwanja, Ume Shakira, and Babiana.
Now, let's take a look at some of the packages we have lined up today. Residents of Katsina State have confirmed the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for the smooth distribution of PVCs across the commended the Independent National Electoral Commission for the smooth distribution of PVCs across the 34 local government areas of the state. This, they say, will enable registered voters to exercise their franchise during the upcoming polls. Take a look.
So, actually, we have received 398,595 pieces of voters' card provided for us for issuance to prospective voters. And in the process, we have given out 312,922. Now we have a balance of 85,663 left over. But you should realize that these figures I'm giving you is not the last figures. The exercise is still in progress.
Speaking in an exclusive interview with Trust TV on the number of PVCs received, collected, as well as those still uncollected in Katsina as at January ending, the head of voter education and publicity of INEC in the state, Shehu Saidu, also assured that the electoral body is working to ensure a successful 2023 general election. On the extension of the date for collection of permanent voter cards, many Katsina residents, especially rural dwellers, are hailing the electoral umpire for the extension. I wasted no time in collecting my PVC. It is ready, and I'm just waiting for the election days to go to my polling unit and cast my vote for people I believe have the interest of the masses at heart.
Yatsa kawai nake jira ranar zabe in wanke in je in dangwala.
Ran shikatin zaben ka?
Insha Allah.
Currently, people are suffering. For instance, as a farmer in 2014 to 2015, if you took 20,000 naira to the market, it could buy you 3 to 4 bags of fertilizers, herbicide, and other farm inputs, as well as other basic necessities. But today, a bag of fertilizer in Katsina, whether local or foreign, is about 35,000 naira.
Inde zabe yazo zamu hita mu zabe.
An fuskanci wata matsala wajen an sashi?
A'a.
To,
ba wata matsala.
Similarly, political parties are also optimistic that INEC officials across Katsina State will do their best to facilitate a hitch-free electoral process.
Collect their BBC card, because without BBC card, nobody will be participate in the election.
Beside PVC's distribution, the electoral body has commenced the screening of ad hoc staff at its headquarters in Katsina. The electoral umpire is, however, appealing to all registered voters to reach out their local government INEC offices and claim their PVCs to vote candidates of their choice on election days. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Thank you, Abdullah Yamadi, for that report. Now, ahead of the February elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Tuesday signed a third memorandum of understanding with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners on movement of election materials. The Commission said lingering fuel scarcity in the country was a big threat to the conduct of the elections. Noel Sampson reports that the Commission is also planning a sensitization program for members of the union before the elections. Let's take the report.
This is the third MOU INEC will sign with the three transportation unions. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu stressed the need for the sensitization program for the members of the unions, which he said is an important part of the elections process.
The Commission shares your concern about the fuel situation in the country and its impact on transportation on election day. The truth is that our arrangements may be negatively affected by the non-availability of products. For this reason, the Commission will this afternoon meet with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited to look into ways to ameliorate this situation.
The NURTW president reassured the Commission of the union's readiness for the elections, promising not to disappoint them.
And I'm assuring the national chairman of INEC today that by the grace of God, we are going to charge this duty as we give to us. And I always promise you, by the grace of God and support our members across states, we will not disappoint Nigerians. Once again, you are welcome to the Ministry of National Union of Transport Workers. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, promised to do its best in making sure that the vehicles meant for the electoral logistics are registered and roadworthy.
All vehicles inspected and certified will receive a tag from FRSC for proper identification that it has met minimum safety standard. The Corps Marshal is hereby calling on all union leaders to inform their members to follow due process and cooperate with members of the Corps. The Corps Transport Safety Office of the Corps has the review template of the checklist approved.
The Commission is confident of conducting a free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has assured Nigerians that despite the deadline of February 10th to phase out old notes, the Apex Bank will continue to accept the old notes as provided in Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act. Emefiele made the clarification on Tuesday when he finally appeared before the House Ad Hoc Committee on the swap new Naira notes.
The governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, finally appeared before the ad hoc committee headed by Leader of the House, Representative Alhassan Adodogoa, after failing severally to honor the committee's invitations. In his presentation, the CBN governor noted that the introduction of the new Naira notes was long overdue, but despite the delay, it has helped in curbing insecurity, banditry, as well as revamp the economy. He said out of the over 2.7 trillion naira outside the banking system in 2022, 1.9 trillion naira have been recovered by the Central Bank of Nigeria since November 2022. Emefiele, however, faulted some commercial banks for breaching the guidelines given by the CBN on the distribution of the new notes, which he said is the reason for the hardship faced by Nigerians, but that the Apex Bank is presently working with anti-graft agencies to monitor the flow of the new notes to Nigerians.
More than 2.7 trillion naira is held in people's homes. What that does is that it makes our mandate of monetary policy very difficult.
He further clarified the insinuations on insufficient redesigned Naira notes in circulation by assuring that CBN staff and about 159 million are supporting the bank to ensure that the new currency reach all local government areas in the country.
We deployed all our staff. We effectively shut down Abuja, shut down Lagos. All staff, go to your locality, not just your state, not just your local, go to your locality.
Chairman of the committee, Representative Alhassan Dogoa, while commending the efforts of the Apex Bank, berated it for not carrying the parliament along in its actions. He said the hardship Nigerians were facing due to scarcity of funds necessitated the action of the parliament.
So only if you had communicated this to us much earlier, the crisis would not have come up at all. Nigerians would have gone home to sleep without any fear of let or hindrance.
According to CBN, the exercise has achieved over 75% success in villages across the 774 local government areas across the country.
All right, over now to other matters. The Joint Association of Persons with Disabilities in Gombe State say their members are going through difficulties accessing the newly redesigned notes in the state. Speaking to newsmen in Gombe, the chairman of the association, Ishaku Adamu, said their members now lack access to basic needs of life due to scarcity of the redesigned notes. Ibrahim Ismail completes the report.
Although the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has extended the deadline for exchanging the old Naira notes for new ones to February 10, 2023, persons with disabilities in Gombe said they have not been carried along in the cash swap program. This, according to them, is complicating their already difficult situation because of their disabilities.
It means they cannot buy food, they cannot buy water, they cannot do a lot of. So we are receiving a lot of complaint from the grassroots, from our members, that their means of livelihood has been completely shut down because of this rejection of the old note and the inability of them to access the new Naira note. I cannot remember any deliberate attempt by the CBN or any government agency in targeting our people on this new policy. I cannot remember such.
Some of the PWDs narrate the difficulties they encounter trying to access the redesigned notes and coping with new CBN policy despite the deadline extension.
Like yesterday that I went to the market to buy something, they told me that I should transfer the money because they cannot collect the old notes. So that I keep wondering that okay, let's say, for example, I don't have a phone and I cannot even transfer, and I don't have anybody close to me that will help me to transfer. You know, this issue of transfer is a very serious thing because I cannot disclose my PIN number to anybody that I don't know. And let's say if I give my PIN number to somebody that I don't know, what next will happen? As a person who is visually impaired, what next will happen?
To amplify the voices of the less privileged and marginalized, Action Aid Nigeria says it stands with persons with disabilities.
Not everybody has ATM, and not all ATMs are even disbursing. So the few ones that are there, you can't queue. That persons with disability cannot stand in a queue for more than 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's very difficult. And even those without disabilities, the other partner, are also complaining. So we are in solidarity with the poor and excluded people in Gombe State and the general in Nigeria.
The hope of these persons is for the authorities to avert the holding of the newly redesigned notes and make them available and easily accessible. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
All right, now it's time for us to take a short breather. And when we return, we'll take a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. Join us again.
find that they must look at this.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Time for the dailies on Daybreak. We have our guest reviewer, Ben Sherman, the former director of News Voice of Nigeria, with us in the studio to give perspectives to some of the stories. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak, as always.
Always a great pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here talks about January vow. Wike-led G5 fails to name presidential candidate. It has the writers that says, Autumn Makinde Ekpazu Ogwai in a fix. It also says, we are sure of reconciliation. That's according to Atiku campaign. Abia governor lobbies to replace late anointed candidate. They have run out of steam. Carry. You'd find all the details on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. That's basically the main story here.
All right, now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It starts with new Naira racketeering, EFCC to raid Lagos, Kaduna, Port Harcourt currency hawkers. And then the first rider, CBN bars multiple debit cards withdrawals, threatens stiffer sanctions. Emefiele meets reps, orders banks to accept old notes after deadline. Central Bank stops old notes payout. Commotion persists at ATM points. And just beneath that, we have queues at ATM points. Then we also have one killed as tanker crushes 3 Lagos tricycles. Protest as Ekweremadu wife appear in UK court. Labour Party governorship candidate, others boycott Obi's Yola rally. And just by the masthead, how 100 bandits ambushed, killed 7 civil corps personnel. This is coming from a director with the corps. And above that, NMPC ADAX end 24-year production sharing contract. We also have reps dump 22.7 trillion naira loan request. Okay. 1 trillion naira borrowing. First scarcity threatens election national security. This is coming from INEC and CDS. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, where the lead story talks about the cash crunch. It says, Emefiele, banks to blame for scarcity of new Naira notes. It has the writer that says, CBN chief to Nigerians, you won't lose your old notes. Deadline extension likely. You'd also find absence of Sikh child stores Ekweremadu's trial. NNPCL, CDS threaten action over fuel scarcity. Nigeria needs a tinker, not a... Okay, Nigeria needs a thinker, not a tinker. These are the main stories here. It says Tinubu also promises prosperity in Cross River, end to erosion in Anambra. NNPCL investing 2.6 trillion naira on 70 roads. These are the main stories on the Nation newspaper.
Over now to the Guardian newspaper. It leads with the story that says cash squeeze intensifies, stalls business transaction. The first rider, this is coming from Emefiele. CBN will still collect old notes after February 10 deadline. CBN uncovers mismanaged 4 million naira new notes in Ogun, knocks commercial banks. We also have online transfers take days to complete. Disputes increase. And just beneath that, we also have a queue of people at ATM points. Then beneath that, violence, internal crisis, mark campaign rallies in Niger rivers. We also have, still on the Guardian, Darie Iyame's release, major setback in Nigeria's anti-corruption war. This is coming from TI, Transparency International. And just beneath the masthead, PDP condemns Tinubu's alleged threat to Governor Emmanuel. Also, Ekweremadu wife in court as trial continues today. You've missed Deadline, name your presidential candidate. Peter's side taunts Wike. IMF urges central banks to stay vigilant, revises Nigeria's growth to 3.2%. These are the major stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper, where the lead story talks about the Naira redesign as well. It says, Mefele bows, begs reps to allow cashless policy work. The writer says, assures value of old notes will be redeemed after February 10 deadline. Crisis looms as POS operators rip off citizens nationwide. CBN uncovers 4 million naira in Ogun. Slams commercial banks. How our intervention paid off, says NBA. You would find all the details on page 6. Below the masthead, security, industrialization, top Atiku, Tinubu campaigns in Sokoto and Oka. Also, you have federal records. Federal government records $1 billion investment in automotive sector. 2023 polls. INEC raises fears over worsening fuel crisis. You also have Emir of Dutse Muhammad Sanusi dies at 79. Other stories, development partners to commit $30 billion to boost Africa's food production. Wike vows to halt PDP leaders for withdrawing from Rivers cases. Pension fund investment in federal government bonds. Others hit 9.64 trillion naira. Again, LASMA confirms 2 dead, 4 rescued in Lagos auto crash. Electoral Act 2022. A turning point for Nigeria, Fagbemi. Buhari inaugurates 5,700 hectare Hadeja Valley irrigation scheme. These are the main stories on the Blueprint newspaper.
Now let's take a look at News Direct. It leads with banks to accept old Naira notes after deadline. This is coming from the CBN, as Emefiele appears before House of Representatives. Money supply in Nigeria rises to 52.14 trillion naira in 2022 despite policies. We also have presidential rally. Osun APC raises alarm over plot by PDP to unleash mayhem. And beneath that, for scarcity, INEC fears disruption of movement of election materials. And just above the masthead, we have Governor Abiodun commissions fire station. We also have Transco increases power generation to national grid as it commissions rehabilitated GT Unit 20. Also, NMPC ends 24-year-old production contract with Adax Petroleum. These are the major stories on News Direct.
All right, now let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper, where the lead story still talking about the Naira redesign. It says CBN will redeem old Naira notes beyond February 11, and that's according to Emefiele. Bank customers flay long queues at ATMs, soaring POS charges. You also have petrol scarcity may affect elections. Logistics, says INEC. Rivers will punish PDP leadership, says Wike. Tinubu in Anambra promises to industrialize, address erosion challenges. These are the main stories on Daily Sun today.
Okay, now let's look at leadership. Leadership leads with the event happened at the Leadership Conference, Stroke Awards. Odinga, technology can be used to rig election. And we have the first rider. Credibility of election depends on INEC courts. This is coming from Oshibajo. We also have 2023 will be the best in nation's history. This is coming from Lawan. Delivering credible post challenge of the moment, Mrs. Nda Azaya. We also have will tackle drug menace frontally, Mara declares. And then also we have INEC worries over worsening fuel crisis ahead of polls. Still on the leadership, Osun politicians want to discredit beavers ahead of polls. We also have petrol scarcity, military police warn marketers. Emir of Dutse dies at 78. And just beneath the masthead, reps approve PMB's 1 trillion naira loan, defer 22.7 trillion naira request. These are the major stories on the leadership.
All right, now let's take a look at the New Telegraph newspaper. The story here says, Naira redesign. No one will lose money after February 10, says Emefiele. Says old notes not legal tender after deadline, but will still be accepted by CBN only. Uncovers mismanagement of 4 million naira by commercial bank in Ogun. Those are the writers to that story. You have also above the masthead, IMF raises Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast to 3.2%. And also you have the fuel scarcity will affect 2023 polls, says INEC. So that's another one raised by the INEC chair. Well, these are the main stories on the New Telegraph.
And then on Nigeria Tribune for this morning, we have old CBN. Only CBN will accept old Naira notes after February deadline. This is coming from Emefiele. And then we have Konkoso in Ibadan says, I'm open to restructuring. We also have police stop plan APC rally in Niger over security threat. Suspected headers kill DPO, 5 others in Benue. Also, election, INEC makes requests for seamless fuel supply. We also have many injured as PDP APC supporters clash in Osun State. Then, just above the masthead, Buhari's visit. Kanu stone pelters sponsored by politicians, terrorists, and sympathizers. This is coming from the presidency. These are the major stories on the Tribune newspaper for today.
All right. Let's take a look at the Business Day newspaper, where it leads with the story of the Naira redesign as well. It says, new Naira, petrol scarcity ground businesses as sales slump, easing inflation scene threatened. So these are the main stories on the Business Day newspaper. Let's get perspectives to some of the stories here. Mr. Ben Sherman, thank you again for joining. It appears that the story of the Naira redesign and the fuel scarcity is taking over virtually all the papers. These are issues that directly impact on the day-to-day life of Nigerians. We've seen that in the past few weeks since the whole thing about the new Naira redesign came into being and the long queues at the filling stations and the rest of them. Let's start with the new Naira thing. Yesterday, the Central Bank Governor was at the National Assembly where he met with a committee of the House of Representatives, to kind of brief them on some of these issues. And there are some concerns that the, CBN governor may not have been able to address all the questions in the minds of many Nigerians.
Absolutely, yes, because there are too many things waiting for some explanations. And to start with, this was a man at the point they said had disappeared. This was a man they said, okay, he's wanted. And of course, he came in. Having explained, he was ill, sick, somewhere in abroad, so to speak. Now he has come. National Assembly at the point they said they're going to send a warrant of arrest on him. He appeared. Now what are we seeing? He said, look, even when there's an extension of for the collection of old currency, it should be used as legal tender. But after that date, it's still going to be collected by who? He said CBN. For what?
Yeah, so I think that, for that, I think the point there is that there's a provision in the act setting of the central bank to allow, for the receiving of this money, the old notes, even though it's not going to be accepted as legal tender by any other person except the Central Bank of Nigeria.
So why waste time?
Perhaps it would douse the tension and the fears.
Honestly, we should rather look at...
And to add to that, what the CBN actually said yesterday was that only people who have the new case to make will have their monies collected from them. For instance, maybe you're not in the country during this period where you're supposed to have taken it there, then they will listen to you. Because you need to make a plea, you need to make a case why you didn't return the money when you were supposed to have done that.
So after let's look at it politically. After the election, they've done everything. Look, they've done collation. Some people will come with higher arguments. These were the reasons why we were unable to vote. therefore open the portals, let's vote. That's what they're talking about. There shouldn't be some people with higher powers to enable them stockpile the money they've siphoned and kept somewhere. Now they want to take it back. So it's not a legal tender, even if you send it, it's not. But rather, let us look at some of the reasons why they said they needed this currency redesign. You said, yeah, in terms of ransom payment, it will reduce. Even the essence of kidnapping. Has it reduced? Some will say yes. Now, we're also saying that in terms of inflation...
I mean, yesterday we saw that the ISWAP, somewhere in Borno State,
yeah.
are distributing the old notes to passengers on the road.
As much as 100,000 naira to each person.
Yeah,
in other words, it's of no use to them, maybe.
Yes.
It's of no use to them. But again, having said so, you also look at the need to control inflation. When they said you cannot buy bitter cola for 2 naira, therefore they shifted to 5 naira. Always we like that round figure kind of a thing. So they're going to ensure that 200 naira, 100 naira, 50 naira, 20 naira, they all are in circulation because the common man will use them mostly. And if you are talking of the higher notes, you leave it for the bigger guys who indeed will be doing some electronic transfers here and there, the way it is done abroad. Now, you go to ATM, what are you receiving? You're receiving still old notes. Now, we ought to be seeing some of these smaller denominations coming out from the ATM more. But we are seeing higher denominations. It will not help us again. And it will therefore tell us that CBN waking up to say, let's blame the commercial banks for all of this. We also want the commercial banks to refute that. They say, look, to refute and say, look, we are saying CBN did not give us this new currency.
But the commercial banks are not reputed. They are not.
That's what I'm saying.
Can they really?
We want them to come out.
This is their regulator. This is their regulator.
We want them to come out to
say,
in a day, this is what you give us. It's not enough. But if the CBN governor is saying, look, we give you new notes that are so much available. So why are they not at the dispensing point? And that is where, as a regulator, the CBN should come up with its hammer, a sledgehammer. Whoever is involved should be dealt with.
I saw a report saying that the central bank releases 30 million naira to each bank, to each commercial bank for distribution. 30 million naira cash of the new naira notes. So, and some people are saying, well, where is it then if that's the money that is being released to the banks?
30 million naira released to a bank, let's say any of the banks, 30. When one man will go and be looking for 50 million, that is not enough for you to I mean, let this money...
Which is why there's a limit for the withdrawal. And the instruction by the central bank not to withdraw cash over the counter, only in the ATMs. And in the ATMs, there are limits. You could only withdraw as much as 20,000 naira.
Yeah, you see,
thereabout.
Yes. Now, you see, back to the economics. The essence is to ensure there is less money in circulation. If there's less money in circulation, chances are that you now bring down inflation. But is it workable in Nigeria? In some other economies, if the money is just not in circulation, you just see that prices of goods will just crash. But in Nigeria, some people would rather hoard. Let's keep and interpret the market situation.
Mr. Sherman, what a lot of people are complaining about now, it's not the fact that there is less money in circulation. There's almost no money in circulation. Businesses are grinding to a halt. Like, a lot of people can no more do their daily transactions. Those are the complaints that we hear these days.
And we expect that prices, therefore, of services will also crash. If there's no money, and just like we've seen in Taraba State, that the market, cow market there, prices are going down because there is no money in circulation. Apart from that, the money available, it's so...
But isn't this very temporary though? Because there's no money now, people cannot access those things, but they actually need them. It means that it's just a suspension of their needs at this point. Once the money comes, they'll have to go get those things.
Well, the economists will argue that in as much as, yes, there's just no money in circulation, prices must come down. But a situation where you have so much money around and the goods are not available, you just see that it's just inflation you're waiting for. And well, we expect that the CBN, the economic team of the president, will sit down and
Mr. Chairman, one
of
of the reasons they gave was because they wanted to move towards cashless policy. But the thing is this, some people have also complained that in the past 2 days, making transfers and all of that have become very, very difficult.
I agree. I witnessed that. Again, probably you now go again to technology. You want to transfer, I mean, your bank is not connecting very well via your service provider. So that is another level again altogether. And it means either that someone is sabotaging or someone is really trying to ensure that nothing works. So we expect all hands to just be on deck. It's just the truth. There's nothing.
Which also seems to.
When you look at, when we've been talking about dollar, pounds, euro, and all that stuff, today is always naira. So there is something about the naira now. Is it going to find its own value right now? Let's see. But I think that the CBN governor and his team, they have so much explanations to give to Nigerians. Why is it that in spite of all of this, there is scarcity? If the scarcity is to ensure that the inflation is being controlled, and we're saying, you said we're going to be small denominations will just be available. We still have the higher ones, 500, 1,000 available more. And by the time you go purchase some items for 600 naira, issue of change is always a problem. This person wants to sell, he has the goods, but this person wants to buy. Take your money. No, I don't have change. Change has remained an issue with us. Maybe by the time we go into heavy electronic transfer or e-commerce, is going to help some of these things. Even armed robbers, those who go to houses, where's your money, surrender your money or your life and all that stuff. We just know that they're going into the wrong arena.
All right, then. Let's take a look at the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper, which is a political story. The January vow, that's about the Wike-led G5, it fails to name the presidential candidate. So we understand that the G5 governors have initially said that, well, they will get to disclose their presidential candidate who they are endorsing by January. Today is February 1st, and we've still not seen that happen yet. So what exactly is going on here?
Just like I've seen a commentator saying they're out of steam. Truly, time is really running out against them. I remember Chief M.K. Abiola of blessed memory, when he had to pass a comment on Association for Better Nigeria, led by Senator, what is it now? He's also led, Nzeribe. Here you are, trying to ensure there is democracy. Nzeribe went and formed a parallel agency that was attacking democracy. So when they said Abiola, comment on this attitude of MQ Abiola. No, Abiola was full of proverbs. He said, look, Nzeribe is like a man who wants to fetch water from a well. But first of all, you urinate inside the well before fetching. Can you see that gory kind of a thing? Now, we want democracy. Is it still nascent in Nigeria? We want it to grow. But when you have a team, it looks like they want to scuttle the process, destroy democracy itself. And everything you want must be done. People must always follow you. Everything. This is not military. It's also not military democracy. It is civilian. It's civil rule. It's democratic rule. So I think for them to be given all these conditions, you now say, you hear from us the last day of January. The last day of January has come and gone. Now look at the governor of Abia State. His chosen, right, his candidate is dead. Now, he has the task of going to ensure who am I going to crown. Now, will he be aligning with the G5 now, or he has a domestic issue to handle?
And now he has to work with the NWC of the party.
Exactly. Now, you go to River State, see APC, PDP Atiku. Say, look, all these court cases, our lawyers still are being pulled down. What does it say? There is something pull out from these court cases. So there's something wrong really somewhere. If, as someone again in the party is saying, there's still room for negotiation, truly, time is running out. And we want to see that mystery, that act. How are they going to manage this crisis here and there? It's a serious matter that the PDP ought to, by now,
An expert said
settled.
that if this is not handled carefully, the members of the G5 could lose out at the end. Do you see that happening?
Of course, it's a possibility. Because even your electorate, they are just not babies. Even a baby, there's a limit as to how far you keep on feeding him or her with just a specific kind of take this akamu, day in, day out. In the end, baby will start throwing up. So the electorate are tired of waiting for this G5. Now, your presidential candidate will go to campaign in your place, you pull out and go for a meeting somewhere. Or you are in the office pretending to be doing some other state functions.
All right. So
I think it doesn't augur well for the PDP and the G5.
Okay.
They have to find a way out.
So another story, still talking about the 2023 election, INEC is raising concern over fuel crisis and the likelihood of that affecting the polls in terms of logistical deployment. So this is coming, right? Are we taking the proactive measures to address this to make sure that it doesn't eventually happen? Here we have an INEC that is heavily going to be relying on NRTW, National Association of Road Transport Workers. Are we really on top of this?
No, so far we are not on top of the situation. When some 10 days ago they said there's now a committee to tackle these incessant cases of shortage of petrol or fuel scarcity in the country, and it's headed by the president. The president is in Jigawa, the president is in Kano, he's in Niger, he's this. I think some people faulted it. If they had just simply said, this is a committee, get one retired policeman or civil servant somewhere and give him the task, ensure this thing works. Now we're having a situation where those to transport materials.
Could it be that the president was made the chairman of that committee because of the seriousness of the situation?
I'm wondering who will make the president the chairman. He made himself. And that's why the committee members, when you look at it, mostly security agencies. And you're talking of a president commander-in-chief, and you know the command structure from top down. Now you have a suggestion. Who do you go to? So it's a complex situation, and that's why INEC is good that INEC is already crying out very loud and clear early enough so that this situation is controlled. You look at the difficult areas in the Niger Delta areas when indeed you need fuel to power the boats, to go to some communities, to go in ordinary times. It was always never easy, not to talk of this moment where there is scarcity almost around the federation. Something should be done. If there is sabotage somewhere, it should be tackled seriously. And I still suggest that the president should indeed form a committee that will be in charge of operations. they can have this major committee as the president has, but have a subcommittee in charge of operations that will have a chairman who indeed, or a lead person who will, just a moment,
we don't
who
know
will
some
go.
people that were tasked with this particular duty before, because this thing boils down to,
I don't know who they
in
are.
Nigeria,
We're only told that there is a committee.
committees at every problem. I mean, another committee again, apart from the
yeah, I said
committee.
a sub within that, the one they have. Because the one they have, I've painted a scenario for you. If you're having service chiefs, you're having the head of SSS, IG of police, then everything is headed by the president. Who indeed? Is it IG who will call the president and say, oh boy, this thing is not working? Is it the NSA that will call the president? Whereas if you had got some people who indeed you can, from the top, and shout, I mean, what is happening?
But what other powers, is beyond that of the president? I think that the president being in that committee shows the seriousness, like Stella said, of this issue and how important it is for it to be addressed within the shortest possible time.
See, we don't, the movement of Inspector General of Police.
And in all
you
of
want
this,
to find him in Nyanya filling station.
Is the Minister of Petroleum.
Just a moment. You want to find the IG in Nyanya filling station. You want to find him in Kuchingoro filling station. You want to find him in Bulambulu filling station in Maiduguri. You want to find him all over the place. No, just get a committee that is mobile, smaller, and you see that they are implementing this. Is it the president? Look at the president's convoy. I mean, is it going to be by just telephone call? It has to be with movement. Some people are in the depot. Let's see. At the port, is the fuel coming? Yes, we've seen that. Is it being ferried out? Yes, it is. Is it in the depot? Yes, it is. But why is it that we don't have them in the filling stations? And yet we will find people hawking them, some people hoarding them. And it is only when there is scarcity that some filling stations open the services. What is happening? So this is what we need. Don't call it a subcommittee. I mean, we've seen a committee. We have to have an arrowhead, even when the president is there.
All right.
And that's where the president is commander-in-chief, but he has, say, chief of army staff to do so. He has the IG to do. So we need a subcommittee within that main thing, and those ones will be in charge of operations.
All right. All right, then. Thank you so much, Ben Chairman, for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us. Thanks a lot. We look forward to having you again. Yeah. Well, we'll take a short break now, and then when we return to the top of the hour, we'll take a look at some of the headlines again and much more. Join us again.
But in a situation where you find that they must look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back from that break. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and if you're just joining, well, we've gone an hour into the show, and it's time for us to take a look at the headlines again. The first one, forfeited assets, the Ziani renews bid to reclaim properties.
DPO gunned down in Benue.
Now, 2023, I'm in talks with Kwankwaso Obi, says Atiku.
Let's take a look at the details. Former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desiani Alice Imaduke, has initiated a process at the Federal High Court Abuja to have the forfeiture orders of the federal government on properties allegedly linked to her vacated. In a fresh motion filed before the Federal High Court in Abuja by her lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mike Ozohome, Alice Imaduke wants, among others, an order extending the time within which to seek leave to apply to the court for an order setting aside the public notice issued by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to conduct the public sale on her property. She said the motion is intended intended against the notice recently issued by the EFCC for disposal of forfeited assets, some of which included those belonging to her. In a supporting affidavit also, the former minister noted that the EFCC planned to conduct a public sale of all forfeited beginning from January 9, as contained in its public notice following various court judgments and orders issued in favor of the commission as final forfeiture orders against property and personal effects linked to her. Seeking 5 reliefs, Alison Madueke argued, among others, that she was not heard before the orders for forfeiture were issued, thereby denying her the right to fair hearing.
All right, now, gunmen have killed a divisional police officer in Gwer West local government area of Benue State. Witnesses said that the DPO was killed by the gunmen who laid a siege to Naka Makurdi dilapidated road at about 3:30 p.m. The chairman of the Gwer West local government area, Andrew Ayande, confirmed the incident to our correspondent on telephone, noting that the deceased, who was in charge of Naka Divisional Police Station, drove alone in a vehicle and was going to pick up his men posted along the road on routine duty before the gunmen opened fire on him. Ayande, however, said that it was not yet clear whether other vehicles plying the route were attacked. The council chairman also said that one Tame Bashon was killed in the early hours of Tuesday by armed invaders who attacked his community in Gwer West local government area.
Now, the People's Democratic Party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, has said that he's in touch with the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, for possible support. In an interview with the BBC Hausa Service, Atiku said he's also holding talks with the Labour Party's presidential candidate, Peter Obi. He said the duo of Obi and Kwankwaso are not in any way a threat to his chances in the election. On the lingering PDP crisis, Atiku said each party has its internal crisis. The presidential candidate also promised to open all Nigeria's borders if elected president.
Now, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has assured Nigerians that despite the deadline of February 10th to phase out old notes, the Apex Bank will continue to accept the old notes as provided in Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act. Emefiele made the clarification on Tuesday when he finally appeared before the House Ad Hoc Committee on the swap, on the New Naira swap. Take a look.
The governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, finally appeared before the Ad Hoc Committee headed by Leader of the House, Representative Alhassan Adodogoa, after failing severally to honor the committee's invitations. In his presentation, the CBN governor noted that the introduction of the new Naira notes was long overdue, but despite the delay, it has helped in curbing insecurity, banditry, as well as revamp the economy. He said out of the over 2.7 trillion Naira outside the banking system in 2022, 1.9 trillion Naira have been recovered by the Central Bank of Nigeria since November 2022. Emefiele, however, faulted some commercial banks for breaching the guidelines given by the CBN on the distribution of the new notes, which he said is the reason for the hardship faced by Nigerians, but that the Apex Bank is presently working with anti-graft agencies to monitor the flow of the new notes to Nigerians.
More than 2.7 trillion naira is held in people's homes. What that does is that it makes our mandate of monetary policy very difficult.
He further clarified the insinuations on insufficient redesigned Naira notes in circulation by assuring that CBN staff and about 159 million are supporting the bank to ensure that the new currency reach all local government areas in the country.
We deployed all our staff. We effectively shut down Abuja, shut down Lagos. All staff go to your locality, not just your state, not just your local, go to your locality.
Chairman of the committee, Representative Alhassan Dogoa, while commending the efforts of the Apex Bank, berated it for not carrying the Parliament along in its actions. He said the hardship Nigerians were facing due to scarcity of funds necessitated the action of the Parliament.
So only if you had communicated this to us much earlier, the crisis would not have come up at all. Nigerians would have gone home to sleep without any fear of let or hindrance.
According to CBN, the exercise has achieved over 75% success in villages across the 774 local government areas across the country.
All right. Now, the Joint Association of Persons with Disabilities, Gombe State Chapter, said its members are going through difficulties accessing the newly designed notes in the state. Speaking to newsmen in Gombe, the chairman of the association, Isha Kwadamu, said their members now lack access to basic needs of life due to scarcity of the redesigned notes. Ibrahim Ismail completes the report.
Although the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has extended the deadline for exchanging the old Naira notes for new ones to February 10, 2023, persons with disabilities in Gombe said they have not been carried along in the cash swap program. This, according to them, is complicating their already difficult situation because of their disabilities.
It means they cannot buy food, they cannot buy water, they cannot do a lot of. So we are receiving a lot of complaint from the grassroots, from our members, that their means of livelihood has been completely shut down because of this rejection of the old note and the inability of them to access the new Naira note. I cannot remember any deliberate attempt by the CBN or any government agency in targeting our people on this new policy. I cannot remember such.
Some of the PWDs narrate the difficulties they encounter trying to access the redesigned notes and coping with new CBN policy despite the deadline extension.
Like yesterday that I went to the market to buy something, they told me that I should transfer the money because they cannot collect the old note. So that's, I keep wondering that, okay, let's say, for example, I don't have a phone and I cannot even transfer, and I don't have anybody close to me that will help me to transfer. You know, this issue of transfer is a very serious thing because I cannot disclose my PIN number to anybody that I don't know. And let's say if I give my PIN number to somebody that I don't know, what next will happen? As a person with visually impaired, what next will happen?
To amplify the voices of the less privileged and marginalized, Action Aid Nigeria says it stands with persons with disabilities.
Not everybody has ATM, and not all ATMs are even disbursing. So the few ones that are there, you can't queue. That persons with disability cannot stand in a queue for more than 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's very difficult. And even those without disabilities, the other partner, are also complaining. So we are in solidarity with the poor and excluded people in Gombe State and the general in Nigeria.
The hope of these persons is for the authorities to avert the holding of the newly redesigned notes and make them available and easily accessible. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
Residents of Katsina State have commended the Independent National Electoral Commission for the smooth distribution of PVCs across the 34 local government areas of the state. This, they say, will enable registered voters to exercise their franchise during the upcoming polls. Take a look.
So, actually, we have received 398,595 pieces of voters' card provided for us for issuance to prospective voters. And in the process, we have given out 312,922. Now we have a balance of 85,663 left over. But you should realize that these figures I'm giving you is not the last figures. The exercise is still in progress.
Speaking in an exclusive interview with Trust TV on the number of PVCs received, collected, as well as those still uncollected in Katsina as at January ending, the head of voter education and publicity of INEC in the state, Shehu Saidu, also assured that the electoral body is working to ensure a successful 2023 general election. On the extension of the date for collection of permanent voter cards, many Katsina residents, especially rural dwellers, are hailing the electoral umpire for the extension. I wasted no time in collecting my PVC. It is ready, and I'm just waiting for the election days to go to my polling unit and cast my vote for people I believe have the interest of the masses at heart.
Yatsa ta kawai nake jira ranar zaɓe in wanke in je in dangwala.
Ran shi katin zaɓenka? Insha Allah. Currently, people are suffering. For instance, as a farmer in 2014 to 2015, if you took 20,000 naira to the market, it could buy you 3 to 4 bags of fertilizers, herbicide, and other farm inputs, as well as other basic necessities. But today, a bag of fertilizer in Katsina, whether local or foreign, is about 35,000 naira.
Inde zaɓe yazo za mu hita mu zaɓe.
An fuskanci wata matsala wajen an sashi?
A'a.
To.
Ba wata matsala gaskiya.
Similarly, political parties are also optimistic that INEC officials across Katsina State will do their best to facilitate a hitch-free electoral process.
Collect their BBC card, because without BBC card, nobody will be participate in the election.
Beside PVC's distribution, the electoral body has commenced the screening of ad hoc staff at its headquarters in Katsina. The electoral umpire is, however, appealing to all registered voters to reach out their local government INEC offices and claim their PVCs to vote candidates of their choice on election days. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
All right, still on election matters. Ahead of the February elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Tuesday signed a third Memorandum of Understanding with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners on movement of election materials. The Commission says lingering fuel scarcity in the country is a big threat to the conduct of the election. Noel Sampson reports that the Commission is also planning a sensitization program for members of the unions before the elections. Let's take a look.
This is the third MOU INEC will sign with the 3 transportation unions. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu stressed the need for the sensitization program for the members of the unions, which he said is an important part of the elections process.
The Commission shares your concern about the fuel situation in the country and its impact on transportation on election day. The truth is that our arrangements may be negatively affected by the non-availability of products. For this reason, the Commission will this afternoon meet with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited to look into ways to ameliorate this situation.
The NURTW president reassured the Commission of the union's readiness for the elections, promising not to disappoint them.
And I'm assuring the national chairman of INEC today that by the grace of God, we are going to charge this duty as we give to us. And I always promise you, by the grace of God and support our members across states, we will not disappoint Nigerians. Once again, you are welcome to the Ministry of National Union of Transport Workers. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, promised to do its best in making sure that the vehicles meant for the electoral logistics are registered and roadworthy.
All vehicles inspected and certified will receive a tag from FRSC for proper identification that it has met minimum safety standard. The Corps Marshal is hereby calling on all union leaders to inform their members to follow due process and cooperate with members of the Corps. The Corps Transport Safety Office of the Corps has the review template of the checklist approved.
The Commission is confident of conducting a free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, thank you, Noel Sampson, for that report. Then this also brings to the questions about logistical issues for the 2023 general elections. INEC is doing all it can from what we are seeing. This is the third of transport workers that it will be signing such a memorandum of understanding, just to be on the safer side, to make sure that we do not face logistical issues, which is very, very crucial to having a very successful election. In the past, we've seen how logistics have crippled, the elections in some way, where you have late deployment of materials, and that automatically affects
voting, because you cannot start voting on time until the materials arrive. And it's a good thing INEC is talking now that, look, this fuel problem, if not addressed, could hamper the elections. It's a good thing, so that everything possible can be done to ensure that there's smooth movement of these materials.
And I mean, if this is happening, are we looking at maybe designating particular filling stations just for road transport workers that we deploy, that we, you know, taking materials to different parts of the country and all that, you know, just to be sure that they are not having to go and queue for hours trying to get fuel and I think, all that.
And apart from that, I think this is just a wake-up call to maybe the President's Committee and every other person to just ensure that the petrol is available for everyone. Because really, even for people that, some people have not yet, some people are in Abuja right now, and their PVCs are in Kano, Kaduna, or wherever, and they want to travel to vote and everything. You know, if they can't, that will also affect them.
Certainly.
You know,
Certainly. So
it's just a wake-up call to everybody involved to ensure that this product is available.
Yes. All right. Now, so we'll take a short break, and then when we return, the Daybreak will continue. Join us again.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak and Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. Going into our next discussion on the program, there are indications that the conversations regarding the campaigns so far focused on candidates' personality and competence disparagement at the expense of major issues. Now, the Center for Research and Development of African Media and Society and Positive Agenda Nigeria said that the last 8 weeks have been a mix of both positive and negative outcomes as the campaign landscape is dominated by issues that do not focus on the issues of national importance. The APC and the PDP may be guilty of these accusations. We have in the studio Ali M. Ali, who is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity, APC Presidential Campaign Council, with us in the studio to talk about the APC politics and the campaigns so far. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for having me, Ayuba. Thank you for being here once again.
You're welcome. Well, let me start by asking, how are the campaigns going so far from where you stand?
Well, they're going very well. Well, not that well, because there will be hitches and then there will be tweaking every now and again. There are issues of logistics. So every now and again, they are being tweaked so that to accommodate new realities and to also get extra mileage from the campaign process itself. So it's not one smooth sail. There are hiccups, there are glitches, you know, but us said and done, I say on average, yeah, it's fairly okay. You anticipate that it's not going to be smooth sail. There are things that occasionally they are beyond your control. When you plan, sometimes the plan doesn't work as, it's not like a charm that works like magic. You know, you are dealing with people, you are dealing with logistics, you are dealing with issues. You're talking of the presidential campaign of the front runner. You're talking of the large logistics involved. So, but all said and done, from crowd mobilization, from the content of our campaign manifesto, you say yes.
All right. While we hope to have a chieftain of the PDP, Umar Sani, join us eventually on the show as we progress, let's talk a bit about the APC, you know, as a party. It seems like all is not well from what we are seeing, you know, going by some statements by the presidential candidate of your party. It's given a feeling as though there is no, the president, who is the leader of the party, and the candidate of your party are not really having a good time, really, as regards support, you know, for the candidate. So, for instance, we've heard the APC candidate talks about the use of the Naira redesign and the scarcity of fuel to, you know, sabotage the campaigns for the APC. And also, you know, just recently, you know, we also heard about the dollar, the exchange rate, where he says, well, the dollar couldn't be tamed from 200, is now about 800, and the rest of them, and it all happens under the APC government. So people will be saying, I mean, why should the APC candidate be saying things like that? And let me just add that on today's paper for the Daily Trust, that is, there's a column here that says it's titled Beyond the Surface with Gimba Kakanda, where he says, he titles it Tinubu's Coldest War. Now, a quote from that, let me read that. He says, President Buhari had 7 years to authorize the redesign of the Naira notes, but instead chose to do so during an election period despite the potential consequences of inciting public anger towards his government. This calculated decision is seen by some as an attempt to undermine not only the general voting public, but also the presidential candidate of his own party. So it seems that there's some kind of legitimacy to this argument.
Well, when you take a decision as crucial as redesigning a nation's currency in an election year, you open yourself to all kinds of interpretation beyond the noble intent which the president has stated in an interview. So this one such interpretation. But if you look at it from the economic perspective, if only done properly and given an extended window for the currency swap, you say it's a very welcome thing. And just like the presidential candidate of the APC, I beg your pardon, I don't know why I make this occasional reference before they begin to mock me on social media. You understand? It's a common thing now. If you have this one slight glitch, people will take it to high heavens. Yeah. Now, so a lot of interpretation will be given. This is one such interpretation. And the fact that the time frame is very limited and in an election year, so these kind of interpretations are valid. But if you look at it very well, it's an economic process which has taken a political interpretation. Now, what I would say is that going back to what you asked originally, there is no rift, and I want to state for the 10th time, between the presidential candidate and the president of the country. There is no rift.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take you back to the first question. Yes. The same President Buhari, in the middle of his first term, when they were talking about signing the electoral bill into law at that time, I remember vividly, he didn't sign it because he said the time was too short, and maybe because he felt that there could be problems, so he didn't. Also, towards the end of his first term, the prices of petrol products had gone up, and then it was almost, it had crashed. So it wasn't sustainable for us to pay so much for subsidy. So there was a lot of talk about removing subsidy at that time. The president at that time, looking at it that, okay, we're approaching another election year, I think maybe that affected his decision, and he didn't remove the subsidy, and up to now, the subsidy is still there. So looking at those two things, yet this same president approved this swap in an election year. Wouldn't say that people who think that there are other motives may have a point?
Well, it will appear so, that if given what you sketch, that there may be. But you see, the president has vowed to leave a legacy of credible election, beginning with the signing of the Electoral Act, which is welcome because, look, if you get the electoral process right, if you vote people on the basis of their manifesto, on the basis of their individual capacities, then nothing could be better for the nation, for the polity than that. But like you said, when you just suppose what he said previously and what's happening now, then you will say what has changed, really. And then, like I said, these are valid questions people are asking, they are raising. And unfortunately, some of us are not in a position to do that. But what we are in a position, to explain that, what we are in a position to explain is the position of the presidential candidate of the APC vis-a-vis the current policy, monetary swap, and then the process leading to a smooth handover of power by May 29.
Okay.
And if at all there is an in-house conflict, which I'm here to say again and again that, well, the perception, the optics, some people will read it, but as an insider, up to a point, I would say.
Well, Malam Ali, there may not be rift, between the president and the candidate of the APC. But the candidate of the APC doesn't necessarily appear to be the choice of the president as it is. This was a president who never really showed up for the campaigns of the APC until recently, when a lot of people were raising questions about whether or not the president is actually, in support of the candidate of the APC. So, yes, there may not be rift, but is the APC candidate actually the one that, the chosen one, or the person that the president really supports or endorsed?
Well, I think we have to understand one thing here. You see, let's go slightly back to the days of the APC presidential primaries. People make this allusion that the president actually was either aloof or not in support of, but the president never showed his hand. He provided a level playing field. And in a subsequent interview, when he was asked about the candidature of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we say he's going to win. Why? Because first, he's a well-known politician. He's a known bridge builder. I'm quoting some of the things he said. And he has been 2 times governor of Lagos State. The president said that. So how much of an endorsement would the presidential candidate require?
All right, Malam Ali, please hold your thought. We'll need to go for a very short break, and when we return, the show continues. Please stay.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust Television. We now have a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Umar Sani, joining us in the studio, and we've had Ali M. Ali, also the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, talking about the campaigns so far. Thank you so much for joining, Madam Umar Sani. Thank you for joining the Daybreak show. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, before you came in, we were talking about the campaigns so far, so perhaps we should hear from your own side how the campaigns have been for the PDP. I mean, the lead story of the Daily Trust this morning says it all. We are still waiting for the G5 to, give us the name of their own presidential candidate, even though I know you don't belong to the G5. But again, your own side of the divide is optimistic that there will be some kind of reconciliation with the G5.
Well, I don't think there is any G5 at the moment, because so many factors have come in to give a clearer route as to where our campaign is heading to. Now, we had an unfortunate incident in Abia State, and the Abia governor is one of the G5, and the governorship candidate of our party is late. He died before the election, so there will be another election. So G5 cannot manufacture a candidate. They have to go through the party, and going through the party means there must be negotiation and agreement and understanding. That is one way gone. So the G5 person there, Ekweazu, cannot be fighting the party because he needs the party at this point in time.
But we still have 4 people.
Yes, I'm still coming to all those things. Ogwuanyi is already, he cannot swim against the tide. Going by Enugu. Enugu has always and will continue to be PDP. So he can swim against the tide. The issues we have are in Oyo State, because Oyo happens to be in the southwest, where Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is from. So the likelihood that Oyo will go to APC is very high, judging by the fact that the state has always been oscillating between PDP and APC in terms of election. So that also is an issue. Now, Rivers State, where Nyesom Wike comes from, he has been campaigning for the PDP. So I don't know whether on the election day he'll go and tell the people, don't vote for the presidential, vote for senator, vote for House of Reps. I think that will be very confusing to even his own candidates that he placed. And we don't forget, there are cases in court now. The party has sacked the lawyers he recommended, and the party has put their own lawyers. So he has to negotiate with the party if his candidates will scale through. So in all this situation that we are having, Otom is the only person who is maybe recalcitrant and insist, because they are from the same state with the national chairman. So in all this, we are very optimistic that those states, that we are having problems, they are ours, especially Enugu, Rivers, Benue, and Abia.
All right, Mr. Ali, apart from the fact that on the one hand, people talk about maybe the president and your candidate, there's also the issue of some persons in your party haven't really been seen actively participating in the campaign. For instance, we haven't seen the likes of former Minister Obunayonu. Amechi, we only saw him in Adamawa, and since then we haven't seen him. Vice President Yemi Oshibajo is also one of them. Will you say the House is together as it concerns the campaigns?
Well, let me just say right away about the absence of the Vice President in the campaign trail, which has been explained in the past. The President explained why the Vice President, that both of them cannot, for issues, reason of running government. That of the Vice President has been settled. You just said a while ago about the presence of Amechi. At least he was seen. He was there in the flag up in Jos. He was also in Adamawa. And as for Obunna Onu, the fact that he's not seen around It doesn't mean that there is war, there is fire on the mountain. No, it's all about optics, it's about the perception. But some people, like you said, rightly, these are valid. The perception here, the optics here show that perhaps there is a discord. But I want to assure even viewers now that there is none. You know, because of the nature of the presidential candidate, he's the one who consults all the time, talk widely, consults, speak all the time. He is the first person to extend the hand of friendship after he vanquished his opponent in the primaries. If you remember, he went, extended the hand of friendship, said, look, let's work together. I need you guys. I can't go it alone. Now, if some may, for whatever reason, they are not seen around, doesn't mean that backstage they are not with the presidential candidate. As opposed, unfortunately, to some other political parties where some battle lines have been drawn, and to this moment, notwithstanding the very rosy picture my friend here painted about the G5, we all know that the G5, they have drawn the battle line. Oh, of course, there are pressures for some of them to actually jump ship midway, to come back into the fold. But that left to be seen.
But Malam Ali, how is it possible that one is in support of a particular candidate, but is not seen to be rallying or mobilizing support for that candidate? And we're not just talking about ordinary members of the APC. We're talking about people at a very high level. Party leaders, talking about somebody like Chris Ngige, for instance, who is a minister under this government. You also talk about Emeka Nwajuba, who was a former minister under the same government. The APC candidate was in Anambra State yesterday, and they were not there. They were nowhere to be found. So how do you say that, someone is actually in support of a person, but is not, seen to be campaigning for that person?
But the case of Ngige, he has made his choice very, public, that he is keeping that to himself, which means, in other words, he's speaking through both sides of the mouth. In public, he said, look, he would make his own choice. So you may say that you have a valid point, raise a valid point. But I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is that some of the people you've not seen, like the case of Amechi, I've explained that, you understand. But the case of Chris Ngige, he has made it point blank that he will make, which in other words, because it's clear, you are in the party, if you are a party man, you know who is going to vote for, who you're going to support. You understand?
So you have people within your party who are possibly maybe working for other candidates in other parties.
Certainly, it's a possibility there are people. It's something that the candidate of the APC has anticipated. He said it.
Are you not worried about that? Is the party not worried about that?
No, even in the best of times, there are some people who, when they defect, they are, one or two. In Adama, a former governor of the party defected to the PDP. And we say, well, good riddance. Why? Because he was a sitting governor, he lost the election. And then for the party primaries, for the 2022 election, he came a distant fifth. So we're talking of numbers. In politics, what you're looking at is numbers. You're not talking about big names. There's people who are big in names, but at the level of delivery, how much votes can they mobilize? They are, like we said, Abuja politicians who have access to public platforms, who maybe they could be, in a way, shapers of public opinion. But at crunch time, what matters is the numbers. And like they say in Washington, there are no kids, there are no public opinion molders, there are people, only voters. How much of that high, the visibility of your office, either as minister, head of predecessor, or governor, how much of it would translate into electoral assets? And this is the thing that counts in election, votes. We're not talking of high-sounding names. You understand what I'm saying?
All right, Ms. Malam Umar, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned Enugu has been traditionally PDP, and I do not know if the PDP still feels that way, really, because we do know that the obedient movement has eaten deep into that region, the south-south and the southeast. So is the PDP still very confident about that region?
You see, when you are talking about permutations and computations of the possibilities and probabilities, you do not bring an untested person and begin to say he has eaten into. How long has he eaten into? To where? You have never tested them. It's only you only see them on the pages or on social media making noise. Have they been tested to know that they have eaten into our this?
They have said that they will remain on social media during the election.
Well, as so far, you see, campaigns is not about maybe the crowd you gather at a rally, but there are certain traditional states, and there are swing states, and there are states that even the APC itself would not even dream of winning, and there are states that the PDP does not even consider as they can do an upset. This is the Nigerian political terrain and political system from 1999
and you
to
think
now.
the PDP has not lost that in the southeastern part of the country?
No, I don't. There is no. In fact, there is nothing to show, either statistically or physically, that the PDP has lost its base. Nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, our party, will garner the 25% in 24 states and will have the overriding majority votes on that day. The APC are priding themselves that they don't have problem. But yesterday, the national chairman of the party was on an international media outlet, in a Hausa platform, where he was lambasting the presidential candidate for making a statement in Ogun State, and that statement was his own albatross. So that is also a problem. Another problem you are likely going to look at is the output of the presidential candidate himself.
All right, Mr. Umar, you talked about lambasting, so I'll come back to that. At the just concluded 20th Annual Trust Dialogue, there were a group of eminent panelists who talked about something. They said all the top front runners for the presidential election, they haven't really put together, they haven't really come up with something to show that they are ready for the job. In fact, one person described what we have seen so far as a beautiful academic piece. That yes, they have talked about some of the problems, but no clear way out of how to solve it. That what we see is lambasting, like you said. So I'd like you to talk to that, just the way I would like Ali to
you
talk.
see, when panelists sit down, they consider issues, on an intellectual and academic basis. They do not consider it having in mind the political angles to that type of discussion, because they are not politicians and they do not understand that certain elements come into play when it comes to campaigning. You do not go to campaigns and begin to talk only about issues, but you also have to lambast your opponent, so that the people who are listening will now know that the opponent has certain weaknesses.
What if the lambasting becomes more than the issues? Is that a problem?
Well, it is. You cannot say that throughout the lambasting became much more than the issues. Most of them are talking about what they want to do. For instance, when Tinubu was in Calabar, what he was talking about, that dollar was 200 naira. Now it's 800 naira. They didn't allow him they didn't school him well on what to do to be able to arrest such situations. There are issues. He's talking about issues. Although it is against his own party, but he's talking about issues. So most of these things are issues which are bedeviling Nigerians. Everybody is complaining about the rise in dollar. Everybody is complaining about the petroleum issues. Everybody is talking about the issue of the Naira exchange. So these are issues, and they are talking to issues. Even though they may not be talking to issues in the manner in which you or me would like to hear it, but at least they are talking to issues. So if we are talking about lambasting, from time to time, you go to a place and you lambast. Not all the time, and I have not seen it all the time.
Well, it certainly should have its limits, isn't it? So that we don't lose the focus of the discussions. But let me ask the question about the INEC now raising an alarm over the possibility of the fuel scarcity affecting the logistical arrangements for the 2023 general elections. How concerned are you about that?
Well, I just listened to, again, an international media. I don't want to advertise them here. This morning, is a regular program from 6:30 to 7 o'clock. And the group managing director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, was talking about the recent fuel increase, and he said they have had a stakeholders meeting and they have agreed that, one, the prices of fuel will go back to its own official rate, and that there will be availability of fuel from now henceforth, and that there will be no fuel scarcity. And this is an agreement they have had with all the fuel stakeholders, and they have all agreed. And NNPC...
That's an assurance that Nigerians have always had.
Well, that is the only way. If the head of a particular section that is saddled with the responsibility of that comes out to say this, that is the only way we can say there are assurances. Otherwise, we cannot begin to question our own thoughts as to fuel scarcity. The INEC chairman is responsible for election. He can talk about the election, and he is talking about how fuel will affect his own election. This is the group managing director of NNPC saying there will be no problem of fuel. So where else do we want to hear from it?
All right. Well, maybe I should throw the same question to you, Madam Ali, as to how this could affect logistics.
Certainly it would, because the election process is about kinetics, it's about movement, it's about vehicular and human movement. But just before I go deep into that, let me just react to some of the things he said about the party chairman actually coming down hard on our presidential candidate only yesterday. And I will say that you must give it to the PDP when it comes to propaganda. They can take things out of context, out of time and place, resurrect it and present it as fresh. The interview in question was something that had happened before the primaries of the APC. I beg your pardon, here I am again, making reference to the PDP as APC. Now, in the June primaries, when it was held, before it was held, when our candidate then, as an aspirant, went to Abeokuta, and he said expressed his reservation in a very strong manner. The APC candidate, who has, at that time, clearly preferred somebody else, if you remember, he came hard in a foreign broker international, actually the BBC House of Service, and excoriated the now presidential candidate of the. But that hatchet has been buried a long time ago. They are now moving together. But the PDP...
Are they really moving together?
They are. At least you see the PDP chairman and the APC chairman. Oh, why am I referring to the PDP? I think you guys have done some voodoo. You've sent them together in public space, always campaigning. The party chairman has been all over the place with the presidential candidate. So that, let's keep that in perspective. I mean, give it proper understanding, because it has gone viral again. Out of context, out of time, but represented as fresh. Now, for the fuel shortage, any shortage of energy in the coming election will affect it. In the past, election was postponed on account of insecurity. Now, the insecurity has been downgraded to a large extent. But what we have now with the shortage of cash in the economy, especially for a country like ours, in the advanced climes, it takes years for currency swap. Even in the UK, for example, UK has over 350 banks. Now, as opposed to Nigeria's, how many banks do we have? 50? 70? I don't know. And in UK, it takes an average of 3 years to have complete currencies swap, side by side. But here we have a window of 3, 4, 5 months. I mean, look at the logistics, and they are not even in abundance. So that would affect election.
But apart from even affecting
so fuel shortage, energy shortage would affect election. But thankfully, going by the latest utterances, but we're used to this. So many times the NNPC would assure us there will be fuel available. And you must give it also to the APC government.
The government is APC. Your party is APC. And it's seeking re-election. Exactly. Don't you think that this scarcity and all of these problems could affect the fortunes of your party?
It will. Certainly it will. And that's why we suspect there are fifth columnists. There are people working in government, people who have benefited from the magnanimity of the APC, who are also sabotaging it. The APC government has paid upfront, made provision for subsidy up to the end of May. So why is the scarcity? This is an APC government made provision. But you won't take it away. There are saboteurs in the system, and this is the thing. The issue, the fact that our presidential candidate is mentioning, is not shying away from that. Say, look, there are saboteurs who are hell-bent on eroding or affecting the fortunes of the APC, and I mean, it's so clear now. It's so clear after his second in Abeokuta again, when he expressed that in strong terms, he is not the sort that will shy away because of his personal ambition to lead the country, shy away from, if you like, even saying what some other people will shy away from saying.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Perhaps, well, let me not say, but maybe these are signs that maybe the APC is losing it, you know, at the final stage of the whole campaign.
Well, for people, incidentally, for anchors, for journalists who don't know how the other side works, yeah, the perception may be that. But you see, at the grass, at where it matters most, yeah, we are shaping public opinion. Certainly, the optics, you will say perhaps the APC, some people are losing in the APC, and that. But if you look at it really, on the contrary, I think it has ended the APC brownie points.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak. Madam Umar, we do not have much time, so I wouldn't risk another minute.
You have to risk another minute. Otherwise, I will accuse you of supporting your editor.
Okay, let me give you. Well, he's not my editor.
He used to be your editor.
But let me give you just that 1 minute then. Let me risk it.
Okay. Let me say that our party is prepared and is talking to issues, and we are going around the country and Nigerians are receiving us warmly. We believe that in 2023, on February 25th, Nigerians will come out en masse, and the PDP, which had held power for 16 years, will now be back, and that is to the glory of God and to the to the will of
we'll see how all that plays out. We have a 4-horse race this time around. The NNPP and the Labour Party are there. It's no longer the APC PDP kind of a battle. But thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube live stream. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaja, and do have a very pleasant day.